Continuing our study of Revelation chapter 2, verses 18 through 29. To the church in Thyatira. To the angel of the church in Thyatira write, these are the words of the Son of God, whose eyes are like blazing fire, and whose feet are like burnished bronze. I know your deeds, your love and faith, your service and perseverance, and that you are now doing more than you did at first. Nevertheless, I have this against you. You tolerate that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophet. By her teaching, she misleads my servants into sexual immorality and the eating of food sacrificed to idols. I have given her time to repent of her immorality, but she is unwilling. So I will cast her on a bed of suffering, and I will make those who commit adultery with her suffer intensely, unless they repent of her ways. I will strike her children dead. Then all the churches will know that I am he who searches hearts and minds, and I will repay each of you according to your deeds. Now I say to the rest of you in Thyatira, to you who do not hold to her teaching and have not learned Satan's so-called deep secrets, I will not impose any other burden on you, except to hold on to what you have until I come. To the one who is victorious and does my will to the end, I will give authority over the nations. That one will rule them with an iron scepter and will dash them to pieces like pottery. Just as I have received authority from my Father, I will also give that one the morning star. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
Good morning. One of my favorite movies is a black comedy called Thank You for Smoking. And it's about a man who's a tobacco lobbyist who can talk almost anyone into anything. He can spin anything, even when it seems completely impossible, even when things like he's going to be trapped and look like a fool, he somehow always seems to come out on top. And in one part of the movie, he puts his work and his human costs into perspective. This is a quote from the movie. He says, few people on this planet know what it is to be truly despised. Can you blame them? I earn a living running an organization that kills 1,200 people a day. 1,200 people. We're talking 2 jumbo jet loads of men, women, and children. I mean, there's Attila, Genghis, and me, Nick Naylor, the face of cigarettes, the Colonel Sanders of nicotine. He's this larger-than-life character who is comfortable with certain moral flexibility, a moral flexibility that goes beyond most people. And as he talks about this death toll with all these different figures from history, there's this flash across the bottom of the screen. There's like this flash of how many people that Attila the Hun has killed, and this flash of how many people that Genghis Khan has killed. And then when he's talking about himself, there's this impossibly large number, and the ticker just keeps on ticking over and over again. And later in the movie, he's interviewed by a reporter, and she asks him, what's his motivation for working in the industry that he works in? And after a few jokes about population control and some other weird things, he finally comes out and gets honest, and he says, I do it for the mortgage. Everyone has bills to pay. Now, a lot of us men fantasize about being heroes, but in my experience, the times that we fail, the times that we sell out on our values, doesn't happen because someone offers us a giant suitcase of money. It happens much easier a little bit at a time for the sake of something like a mortgage. It happens to defend the status quo. It happens because we don't want to ask for help. We don't want to look weak. And the truth is, almost anything, from putting people in the gas chambers in Nazi Germany to the economic crisis that's destroying our planet, almost every horrible thing that humans have done, it's been justified by something like, I do it for the mortgage. Everyone has bills to pay. In ancient Thyatira, trade guilds were much like modern trade unions. They were the vehicles of the economy. And temples were sort of like a cross between banks, restaurants, and union halls. If someone wanted to strike up a business deal in our day, they might say, can I buy you a drink? Or they might say, let's do lunch. You know? In ancient Thyatira, it would sound a lot more like, come join me over at the temple of Jupiter for a sacrifice to him and maybe to talk a little business. And at the temple, business would be conducted at a table. And a small portion of the meat would go to the priest who made the sacrifice to Jupiter or whatever the god happened to be, but almost all of it would be shared by those who the person who brought the animal would bring along with them. It was the pagan way to say, let's do lunch. And if you weren't at the table because, say, your Christian convictions about idolatry got in the way, you were going to pay a pretty heavy price, a price that many of us would find almost unimaginable. You're going to pay the price of locking yourself out of the economy. So it would be like being the only trader who refused to trade on the New York Stock Exchange. You would have to worship false gods and eat food that was sacrificed to idols to get close enough to anyone to make a deal, to get some work. That was just the way that the world worked. You want some aluminum siding on your house? That contract would cost you just a few simple betrayals of your faith, and then you would be there. I think everyone has a little voice in their head that says, I got to pay the mortgage. Everyone has that voice that says, well, you've got to pay to play, or the ends justify the means, or what about the future? And if you think that because I'm a pastor, or that I'm somehow on a high horse and that I don't struggle with the same sorts of things that you do, you're wrong. Everyone, maybe especially someone like me, struggles with that question. What will I do? What will I do to make sure that the future is okay? And the church of Thyatira was well acquainted with that voice, the voice that said accommodation was necessary, that you need to avoid economic and social disempowerment. You need to look out for the future. And at Thyatira, someone had taken this message that people wanted to hear, and they had given it a voice. John doesn't mention her real name, but he gives her this nickname, Jezebel, the most infamous wife of the most infamous king of Jewish history. And the real Jezebel of the Old Testament was a strong-willed woman devoted to the worship of Baal. Jezebel wanted Israel to worship Baal, the god of her ancestors, and Ahab, the Jewish king at the time, was like a puppet in her hands. She represented the seductive power of accommodationism, inviting hundreds of prophets of Baal to her table. And if you wanted to be powerful, if you wanted the ear of the king, the quickest way was to get on board with her agenda. She would have been fine if Yahweh was worshipped alongside Baal and Ashtoreth and all these other regional gods that people worshipped at the time. But where people defied her vision of tolerance, she was fiercely intolerant. She tried to kill the people of God that stood up to her and tried to stand in her way. She even had the prophet Elijah so terrified that he ran away and hid in a cave, afraid of her. The text says, her, not the armies of the king, not the wrath of the king, but her, this woman, Jezebel. Even after a victorious showdown with Elijah and the prophets of Baal, even after fire came down from heaven and consumed the sacrifice that was sopping wet with water, even after Elijah had mocked hundreds of people for having a God who maybe couldn't hear them because he was off somewhere in the bathroom or something. Even after all that, Elijah was so scared of her that he ran away to hide in the cave. The woman called Jezebel in Thyatira is only Revelation, it's called the deceiver, besides the beast himself. And Jesus' words here are the most severe of any of the words to any of the seven churches. The more severe than anything I've ever preached on in my entire life. She has misled the servants of God by pretending to be a prophet, and telling them that sexual immorality and idolatry are okay, and that God has given her plenty of time to repent, and even he has thrown in the towel and given up. But instead of the fast track to success, those who are willing to cheat on God with this kind of idolatry that they're invited into, to join in with the marketplace, instead of expecting this bed of treasures and pleasures and prosperity, they're going to experience a bed of sickness, a bed of misery and pain. And the children of this metaphorically sexual union between the people and the teachings of this woman, basically those who would lead others astray just as she has, and live into her teachings and do the same sorts of deceit that she has done, they are threatened to be struck down by God, just like the prophets of Baal were struck down by Elijah. God, who searches the hearts and minds of his people, is not willing to share the hearts of his people. He's not willing to share them in this false economic sense. In the Old Testament, one of the greatest metaphors for idolatry is adultery. Adultery shows a betrayal of the heart. In a marriage, many outward things can look very strong, rock solid. Two married people can have a relationship that looks like the one that ChristianSingle.com would dream of. They can have a beautiful family. They can have a beautiful home. They can read the Bible every day. They can have Bible verses cross-stitched on every single pillow in their house. But if one partner is secretly having an affair, the whole thing is just a big superficial mess. There's a big red flag that all those supposed strength, all these outward things are really hollow inside. They're not nearly as strong as people think they are. In the same way, John is making a statement that maybe the outward strength of this church of Thyatira is superficial. People might come and worship. They might even notice real signs of growth. They might see good deeds. They might see evidence of the love of God. They might see faith. They might see perseverance. But the church is actually in denial about something really, really crucial. They have failed to confront some pretty rampant idolatry in their midst. Like a marriage partner who's all too willing to put their head in the sand when they see evidence that their partner is having an affair, the church has tolerated too much for the sake of a false sense of unity and security. I think that's a danger for every church, that we can tolerate things that we shouldn't tolerate, that we can deny the truth for a false sense of peace. And maybe like Ahab or Elijah, we could be afraid to confront someone, even someone that's just a woman, just a person like you or me. And as a person who fully supports women in ministry at every single level of ministry, I want to point out that the Bible doesn't have a problem with female prophets. Either the Old Testament or the New Testament, you can see plenty of evidence that the church was filled with female prophets. And it wasn't that Jezebel was a woman that was the problem, it was her teaching on accommodationism. It was that she claimed to speak for God and espousing a seductive message that people wanted to hear, but that was false. And she knew it. She knew she was a deceiver. She may have claimed that she had been inviting people into the deeper things of God, but she was really inviting people into the deeper things of Satan. And for those in the middle not sure of what to do with this woman, whether to trust her or not, John makes it crystal clear that she is of the mold of Jezebel. She is a deceiver. She may be seductive and beautiful and bearing an attractive message, but she is a false prophet, a vicious person who's only looking out for herself. And for those who follow her path, it's time to wake up to the reality that this path only leads to destruction. And for those who have not followed in her ways, Jesus encourages them to hold on to what they have until he comes. So we live in a culture and a time where we're told that tolerance is the highest virtue and that intolerance is the only vice. That's basically the moral code of our world today. That it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you believe it quietly in a corner, as long as you don't rock the boat. There are some in our day who have held to their beliefs in the face of a lot of cultural opposition and organized seen people. In our day and age, it looks a little different. I've seen cake decorators and wedding photographers be crowd-pounded into poverty or sued for hundreds of thousands of dollars for having a different Christian belief than other people have. But most of us, we don't have this sort of problem. We don't live in a world where we have to bow down to Baal in order to buy groceries at the store or conduct business in the world. But perhaps most of us, and I was one of the people who believed this, we fall for this false message that we can compartmentalize our faith. That we can leave our Christian beliefs and values at the door as we punch in and work for the day. That it's okay to be afraid to stand up for the truth if it might cost us something economically or monetarily. Martin Luther, the great reformer, was perhaps only half joking when he said that following Jesus requires of us 3 conversions: one of the heart, one of the mind, and one of the purse. Just like the people of Thyatira, I think we can be a little too cozy in the gray areas of our world. We can fall into unhealthy patterns. We can fail to look at what we do for the mortgage in light of what we really believe and value. We can let that what we do for the mortgage have more influence over us than the God that we love and serve. And sometimes we can put a blind eye to the red flags that we might see, where our desire for tolerance can actually hurt our faith, can stop us from growing. Where we actively ignore things in our daily lives that betray that we trust really something other than Jesus, that we have put our eggs in things like our 401ks, our businesses, our houses, our nest eggs of various kinds. And sometimes there are defining moments that come in screaming into our lives where we require some kind of showdown, like Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Sometimes God taps someone on the shoulder and they have to do something radical. They have to die for their faith, testifying to the power of Jesus at work in their lives. But for most of us, we live in the mundane areas of life. Ours is a faith that wrestles with what to do in the face of a roaring lion, and what to do when becoming a Christian is going to cost us everything that we own, our houses, and our livelihood. Ours is a faith that looks for what are we going to do to live out our faith with questions about the mortgage, the daily grind of hunger of life. And there are places that would seem like a little compartmentalization would help us get a little farther. There are places that would seem like clinging to our faith is only going to hold us back. And these are the places that Jesus' word to the church of Thyatira, to simply hold on to what we have until he returns, require the most of us. To the one who perseveres in the faith until the end and does the will of God, to the one that conquers with God in the small things and in the large things, God will share many blessings. And here we see that these blessings look like authority and hope. John uses some interesting symbols as he speaks about this scepter of iron breaking pottery and this gift of the morning star. And the iron scepter points us to Psalm 2, where it's written, "You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery." It's not in the trade guilds of Thyatira or the pagan temples where deals are struck that lasting authority would come. One day, that would all be exposed as brittle as pottery. It's in the promise of God that we should place our authority and place our trust. And this authority shared with us is the only authority that will last. If we put our trust in earthly kingdoms and this world, that we put our trust in economic forces and military forces, we are of the morning star. We see a profound picture of hope. Later in Revelation, we see this concept of the morning star tied with this concept of Jesus as the root of Jesse. And so many people of that time and day, they would see this not as much as calling for the root of Jesse as it would be is pointing to Venus, to the morning star that they would know. And this morning star would point out that the sun was coming shortly after, that daybreak was coming, that though things seemed dark, that the sun would overcome the darkness with that light. And so this imagery was an imagery just like the other imagery that pointed to the second coming of Christ, the presence of Christ. The hope that all of that will change one day when Jesus comes back and makes all things new. But the imagery of the morning star was also an imagery that pointed to Daniel chapter 12. In Daniel, we find other imagery about the end times and other strong contrasts between the people who are honestly serving God and trying to do good, the righteous, and those who have fallen for this cultural idolatry and have become the unrighteous. But here we see that the righteous people who shine with the brightness of heaven are the ones that lead people back to the righteousness of God. And so this last hope that we find in the morning star is a powerful picture of hope. It makes an example of the righteous people. And as people who are called to be righteous, we should never give up that we, as we try to live earnest and faithful, righteous lives, that we are having an influence on people, that we, by our example, might turn back people who have turned away from God. It's easy to think that we will never make a difference to those who are walking in error. But those who have not compartmentalized their faith are an example. It's an example that calls people to walk away from their compartmentalization and walk away from their false security that comes from tolerance. And that if we just hold our ground, even when the whole world seems to be set against us, that we are the ones who will stand before Jesus one day and see his smile. And this is what we're called to do as Christians. We're called to a faith that even in the midst of some of the greatest societal pressure that we can face, that we can stand firm. It's a faith that has experienced that third conversion, where our economic security and our faith are connected together in sacrifice. We can look at an uncertain future and trust that God will make a way where there is no way. That where the math doesn't work out, that somehow God will make it work out. That where the rubber meets the road of trusting God, walking in faith, that God will provide for us as we continue to be faithful. As we go into a time of open worship, I just invite you to wrestle with that question. It's really a question of integrity. It's really a question of being whole people called by God to live in the real world. So I just pray that you'd be obedient and listen, and that God's Spirit would speak to you in the stillness, and that you would respond to that as you feel led.